How can you get the lowest possible interest rate on your mortgage loan? Whether you're buying or refinancing, today we're going to talk about all the different options to get your interest rate as low as possible. At the end of the day, when we're asking about a low interest rate, it's because we want a low payment. You don't pay your interest rate monthly, you pay a payment monthly. So today I want to talk a little bit about what it takes to get the best possible interest rate for your loan, what things we look at as loan officers, and what are some things that you can do to make sure that that interest rate or that payment is as low as possible. It's a question that I do get quite a bit, right? Home prices are rising, interest rates are still pretty low, but that's the number one question. If you're looking at a $400,000, $500,000 home, and I quote you that initial payment estimate, I hear it a lot. How do I get that lower? How much more money do I need to put down to get this payment lower? You can do other things than putting more money down. Putting more money down has, in some cases, very little effect on what it actually does to your interest rate. So what drives interest rate, first of all? What drives that rate? Is it based off your credit score? Is it based off of how much money you make? What does it do, right? I feel like not a lot of people know this, and that's okay. That's why we're here. We're teaching you what you need to do today. So interest rate, the main drivers of it are credit score, that's the biggest one, as well as the loan to value amount. So we've talked about that in past videos, but basically the down payment, right? Or if you're refinancing, how much value do you have compared to how much you owe? The lower that number, so again, if 50%, let's say you're financing $200,000, the home is worth $400,000, even when you've got tougher credit scores, you're actually going to get a pretty good interest rate on this situation. So to get the best possible interest rate, we're looking at good credit scores. I'm talking 800 plus, and honestly, even 720 plus is going to get you more of the top tier interest rates. Best obviously is going to be 800 plus, but 720 I feel like is a lot more doable for people. So should be your goal. 720 or higher is going to get you a good interest rate. And then the down payment, right? If you're purchasing, 20% is always ideal, but you can get good interest rates with a good credit score and only 3% down if you're a first-time home buyer. And if you're not doing a down payment assistance program, and we'll talk about why we can't do that in a minute. So how much more money do I need to put down to get the payment at this amount? Well, that's tough because, and this isn't exact, every $20,000 of financed amount is about $100 in monthly payment. It's not exact. Again, it's not 100%, but let's say, the payment's $1,000 a month and the price, and then the loan amount is $150,000. If you go up to $170, that's going to change it to $1,100, so on and so forth. So $20,000 for every 100 is a lot of money. If you were going to lower your monthly payment by $100, it would typically take an extra $20,000 down in order to do that. That's a lot of money. But one of the other ways that we can do is something called a buy down, an interest rate buy down. It's fantastic, and it sometimes makes sense, sometimes doesn't. Every situation's different. What is a buy down, right? I get that question. A buy down is basically when you're paying an additional fee to get a lower interest rate. So instead of putting an additional down payment, let's say we're still doing a 3% down situation, loan amount is, let's say, $200,000. If you were to buy that rate down by 1 point, now keep in mind, 1 point does not equal 1% of the interest rate. It does equal 1% in cost. So let me repeat that again. Buying down the interest rate 1 point is going to cost 1% of the loan amount. So if it's a $200,000 loan, it's going to cost you $2,000 to buy it down 1 point. Okay, well, that's going to be the next question. What does a point equal in interest rate? This is where it gets a little tricky because every situation is a little bit different. It's, like I said, based off your credit score, based off of the down payment. But let's do some hypothetical situations, right? So let's say the interest rate as it stands, or we call it a par rate in the lending business. So par rate, if you're keeping track of all the different options, that basically means it's at no cost for that loan, or for that rate. So let's say it's 3.5%. There's no points or no fees to get that 3.5%. Well, if we buy it down 1 point, and again in this situation that's 1% of the loan amount, that depending on the loan type, it's going to buy that interest rate down to maybe 3.25 or 3.125 or maybe even 2.99. Again, there's going to be a lot of factors in there. And I like to show this to people when I'm looking at your specific situation. I can show you the rate sheet. I can say, look, here's where your par rate is. Here is your buy down. If you wanted to get a lower rate, and you can actually go the other direction. So that's a good question. Why would you want to take a higher rate to get more of a credit? That's where we can get into things like if you don't have money, maybe you have enough money for just the down payment and not for closing costs, and the seller does not want to pay for your closing costs. Well, we can take a slightly higher interest rate. That would give you a lender credit. And again, depending on the situation, it might be enough of a lender credit to cover your closing costs if you have good credit. So keep that in mind. Another great way to reduce your mortgage payment, and this doesn't have so much to do with the interest rate as it does just another way to structure the loan. Mortgage insurance, right? PMI. We've talked about it before. PMI is when basically you're doing not 20% down, or if it's an FHA loan, an any percent down, but let's just stick with a conventional option. You're doing less than 20% down, you're going to be paying mortgage insurance. But did you know you have options on how you can pay that mortgage insurance? The most popular one is the monthly, right? Everybody knows that it adds to your monthly payment, right? Well, that's actually not true. There's several options. You can buy out your mortgage insurance. So basically you can pay one large upfront fee to not have it monthly. So that's one way to do it. You can buy it out. Second option is something called lender paid mortgage insurance. So how would the lender pay for it? Through the rate. So if you take a higher interest rate, we can reduce or omit the monthly mortgage insurance so it's not on there at all. Another great way to reduce that payment. So again, it's one of those things you want to compare side by side. That's what I do when people come to me with these situations. I try to find the way to get you the lowest possible payment with the least amount of money out of pocket. That's what I do. So we do a side-by-side comparison. We take a look at here's what it would be with the monthly mortgage insurance with this interest rate, or we take a slightly higher interest rate but no monthly mortgage insurance. Where does that payment come down to? Again, when you're asking about interest rate, what you're really asking about is how much is your payment. So that's what we're going to compare. And whichever one has the lower payment, typically the way to go. Again, unless you've got different long-term or short-term plans. If you're right now, the Arizona market is hot. Home prices are increasing a lot. If you bought out your mortgage insurance last year, that may not have been a good idea because this year you probably have enough equity to just refinance or ask for a PMI deletion through the bank or through your lender. So again, a few things that go into that, but I think it's a topic that we don't talk about enough. A lot of people think this is my interest rate. I can't change it. I need a better credit score, and that's the only way I'm getting a better rate. That's not always the case. You can buy it down, talk about the different, mortgage insurance options to get a lower payment. And check this out. So for refinances or even for purchases, the different term that you use, typical is the 30-year fixed mortgage, right? That's the interest that we see. If you take a shorter term, so if you do a 20-year mortgage or a 15-year mortgage, the interest rate is going to be lower than it would be with 30. Again, your payment's going to be higher in that situation, but not as much as you might think. A lot of people think that a 15-year mortgage compared to a 30-year mortgage, the 15-year you're going to pay double what you would pay on a 30-year, right? It's not the case. Sometimes it's just a few $100 difference. So if you've owned your home for a few years, regardless of your interest rate, give me a call. You might be surprised how much better it could be to refinance to a 15-year. Imagine being out of debt in half the amount of time than you had planned on. So it's always worth a conversation. Again, it may not be the right thing, but you don't know until you ask. Those are the main things that you can do to get a lower interest rate. Credit, obviously, number one. So if you've got rough credit, you're probably going to be paying a higher interest rate. You can buy it down. But again, if it's really bad, like if your score is in the mid to low 500s, you're more than likely going to be paying points for a high interest rate. So you're going to get stuck with both. So credit score is a lot of it, guys, but down payment also helps. So hopefully this was helpful. If you guys have any questions on that, I'd love to talk more about it. What are some other unique, fun ways we can do to get that mortgage payment as low as possible? If you have questions or comments, hit me up in the comments section. And as always, like and subscribe to this video. Thanks, guys.